Are you dealing with an avoidant attacher? Or are you dealing with a full-fledged narcissist? What is the difference? People often confuse the two, and it's understandable. A lot of the behavior overlaps. Both can be extremely selfish. Both can do things like cheat on their partner, gaslight, distancing behaviors, etc., etc. But there are also distinct differences. And the biggest difference between the two of them is intent. We'll get into that. Narcissism is a personality disorder. It is ingrained in this person's head, and a narcissist is extremely unlikely to change. Avoidant attachment is a learned behavior and insecure attachment style. And this person absolutely can heal, grow, become secure, and learn new behaviors. So let's get into the differences between the two, starting with narcissists first. When a narcissist goes into a relationship, they are seeking one main thing: narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is the attention, validation, and power and control that a narcissist feels entitled to. It is their birthright. Now, a narcissist has a big pit of shame inside of them, and shame is a toxic emotion. But they don't want to face that shame, so what they do is they create something called a false self. The false self is the image of themselves that they project to the world. And they even delude themselves into believing that their false self is who they really are. Their false self is always a perfect person. That's why they're pathologically unable to take accountability, because if they were to ever admit wrongdoing in a meaningful, true, authentic way, it would shatter their false self, because their false self is perfect. Now they feel entitled to get attention and validation from anybody that they want. They need endless supply coming in. There's never enough attention. There's never enough validation for a narcissist. And being in the position of power and control, whether it's in the workplace or in a relationship, gives them a lot of supply because it makes them feel powerful and relevant. So now, when they enter a relationship, it is very transactional. The same way that you go to the store to buy a loaf of bread, you give the cashier money, they give you the bread. The narcissist treats the relationship the same way. They give you the love bombing, so you give them the supply. Also, in the beginning of the relationship, the narcissist, since they believe that they are perfect, they deserve the perfect partner. So therefore, you are perfect. They actually have you on this pedestal, and they love bomb you. They give you all this attention because you're perfect. But in reality, the narcissist is not really giving you the attention. They're giving themselves the attention, because they have convinced themselves that they are so wonderful. Therefore, you're perfect because they're wonderful. So when they're giving you attention, they're really giving themselves attention. Then my partner's wonderful because I'm wonderful, because I'm so great. That's why I have a great partner. So it's really pouring it onto themselves. The narcissist really convinces themselves that they're wonderful and falls in love with themselves. Now, as time goes on, their partner begins to reveal their flaws, because everybody's human. Everybody has flaws. The narcissist cannot have this because they deserve the perfect person. So this begins the devaluation phase of a narcissistic relationship. The first phase is the love bombing phase. Then it goes to devaluation, where they start to put their partner down. The narcissist has to elevate themselves to the power position in the relationship. And they use various different tactics to do so. Gaslighting, manipulating, and even things like cheating, verbal abuse, controlling their partner, financial abuse, things like that. And it slowly creeps in. They start to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it gets to the point where everything you do is wrong. Nothing is ever good enough. And no matter how hard you try, it's never good enough for this person. And everything is always your fault. Even when they do toxic behaviors like cheat, they blame it on you, because they're pathologically unable to take accountability. And if they convince you that you're the problem, well, guess what? That elevates them to the power position of the relationship. It means they have control over you. And they will find various different methods to control you in the relationship and assert their power. Now, a narcissist feels entitled to get supply from wherever they want. So studies have shown that approximately 87% of narcissists are serial cheaters because they feel entitled to it. And if they get caught, it's your fault because you didn't give them what they needed. It's never their fault. Well, eventually, they get bored of your supply. It's old. It's not new. They need fresh supply. So they're done with you. They discard you. They do it in a very brutal way, the same way that you throw out an old broken toy, because that's essentially what you are to them. And when they get rid of you, they always have a new supply lined up. And it can absolutely be soul crushing. But this person, they genuinely don't care about you or your feelings, because narcissists are essentially unable to feel love or empathy. The best they can do is fake it. A narcissist does not view the world in the way in which it actually exists. They live in an alternate version of reality. Their reality is not actual reality. Now, let's get into avoidance. Avoidants go into a relationship looking for love and connection. They genuinely do want it. But due to their insecurities, they tend to self-sabotage, and they're not able to sustain and create those deep connections that they long for deep down. Avoidants, they receive consistent childhood emotional neglect as children, and they personalize this neglect, often growing up in households where you don't talk about feelings, very stoic parents. They personalize it and grow up to feel unlovable and defective. So they put up these walls around their heart. They keep their partner on the other side of the wall. They feel unsafe with emotional closeness due to that big wound of defectiveness. It's also a wound of shame, because their subconscious fear, and sometimes conscious, is that if I let my partner in, my partner is going to figure out that I'm defective. They're going to figure out that I'm not lovable, and they're going to reject and abandon me. So the avoidant feels unsafe with emotional closeness, but they feel very safe with emotional distance. Early on in the relationship, they too can love bomb, but that's because they've convinced themselves they really got it right this time. And their fears have not been triggered since there's no real emotional intimacy building. And other things can trigger them too, like disagreements, expectations, and it all goes back to their childhood neglect. But those fears had not been triggered early on, and they're letting all these bottled up emotions flow out onto their partner. Plus, avoidants are people pleasers. So by giving you the love bombing, you're going to validate them and make them feel better about themselves, because they rely heavily on external validation. But as the relationship progresses, their fears start to get triggered, so they seek different ways to create emotional distance between their partner and themselves. And many of these behaviors can be quite selfish and very similar to what a narcissist would do. Gaslighting, distancing, ghosting, cheating, stuff like that, because it all creates emotional distance. With the avoidant, it is all fear-based, whereas the narcissist is seeking supply and power and control. The avoidant is afraid and insecure, so creating distance helps them feel safe, and it soothes their wounds. Now, in addition to intent and why they behave the way they do, there are some distinct behaviors that are more unique to narcissists than they are to avoidants. Let's get into those. While an avoidant absolutely can do and say hurtful things when they're trying to create distance, the level of cruelty and nastiness and vileness is always more extreme from a narcissist. That's because they actually do enjoy hurting their partner, because when they see their partner in pain, it gives them supply, because it means they have power over this person, that they can get under this person's skin and they can control them. An avoidant does not get pleasure from hurting the other person. Also, there are other behaviors that narcissists are far more likely to do than avoidance. One of them is triangulation, using a third party, an external person, could be a family member, a friend, an acquaintance, or even a therapist, using that third party to get that person on the narcissist side to help them manipulate and control their partner. Narcissists love to do this as a weapon. Narcissists will give the silent treatment as a punishment, whereas avoidants, when they're triggered, they get flooded with anxiety and shut down, which is stonewalling. Narcissists generally do punishing behaviors. Avoidants do behaviors to soothe themselves, not to punish the other person. Narcissists, when it comes to divorce, when there's children involved, are far more likely to intentionally try to alienate the children against the other parent. This makes the narcissist feel powerful. They get to see the other parent in pain, being alienated from the children. And when the children solely come to the narcissist for support, it also makes the narcissist feel powerful. Avoidants are generally very unlikely to try to intentionally alienate children against the other parent. In general, the level of cruelty and nastiness is way more with the narcissist. It's also worth mentioning that some narcissists have learned to manipulate people through anxious tactics, and sometimes they can be confused with anxious attachers as well. But the level of cruelty, gaslighting, manipulation, and nastiness is always so much more with the narcissist.